Welcome to CivilNet. Our guest today is Anthony Barsamian, the co-chair of the Armenian Assembly of America. Mr. Barsamian, thank you for coming to CivilNet.
Thank you, Tatul. It's a pleasure to be here.
Established in 1972, the Washington-based Armenian Assembly never comment on Armenia's and Artsakh's internal issue, domestic politics. Why?
So the Armenian Assembly is an American Armenian organization. So it being an organization founded and working in America, we don't interfere into internal affairs of Armenia. So if there's an election, we wait till after the election, and then we work with the elected officials. So you'll never see us comment before an election, either in Artsakh or in Armenia, until the election's final. Then we work with the leadership of both Artsakh and Armenia.
Any leadership?
Any leadership, absolutely. And we work with successive leaders in both places. So last month in October, I was in Artsakh. I met the leadership. I came to Armenia. We met leadership here. And I'm back again a few months later. So we keep in very close contact. Van Kerkoin, my co-chair, myself, Carolyn Mugar, our president. So we're quite active on the ground here in Armenia and Artsakh.
Mr. Barsamian, what kind of changes do you feel after Velvet Revolution in Armenia?
Well, it's obviously one of optimism. There's hope for the future. People feel very hopeful. We're pushing very hard in Washington for direct foreign investment. Jackie Spears earmarked additional monies for Armenia, $40 million. So you have a package of about $60 million coming from the United States to Armenia. So I'm quite hopeful. I see the change in the street. I'm active here in the community. I know a lot of leaders and policymakers and thinkers, and we're optimistic as well. We have to have more U.S.-Armenia relations, more trade, more business investment, more high-tech investment. You're seeing that. You're seeing a lot more activity and a lot more investment across the board.
So you believe Armenia is on the right track, yes?
I think it's absolutely on the right track. This week, Condé Nast named it as one of the 20 places in the world, the top 20 places to visit. I frequent Portland, Maine, and you have Armenia, Portland, Maine, the British Virgin Islands. So people are looking at, they called it the booming Caucasus. So Armenia is finding its place in the world. As you know, Ryanair is going to be flying to Armenia. There's other airlines that are looking at Armenia. So you'll have more European travel coming to Armenia. And because I come frequently, it's helpful to see these different routes coming to Armenia because it'll drive more business to the country.
You mentioned Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh. You know that in 2020 in spring, we have parliamentary and presidential elections there simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And how important these elections are for organizations like your organizations who are advocates of Nagorno-Karabakh's Artsakh self-determination and independence?
Sure, it's very important. I mean, we are very, very concerned and always at the forefront of Artsakh's security. And so when I went in October, we met with the president and the foreign minister, which we typically do. Here we meet regularly with the foreign minister. So yesterday we met with Zoran Artsakhanyan, Masis Mayelian. We met with in October. So it's very important to us. Artsakh's security, their right to self-determination, their right to self-governance is a priority for the Armenian Assembly, always will be.
Yeah, Mr. Barsamian, in recent interview to CivilNet, High Commissioner for Diaspora Affairs, Zare Sinanyan, mentioned, quote, having a body unifying the entire diaspora. Are you optimistic and do you foresee such a body?
Yeah, I mean, so Zare...
Taking into the consideration the fact that the Armenian world is so diverse, you know?
I welcome that diversity. I mean, Zare is great, and the Armenian Assembly is a very unique organization. We're open to all Armenians, all political parties, all interests, all organizations. Our history shows that. Richard Hovhannisyan was one of the founders of the Armenian Assembly, the Hovnanian family, the Mugar family. So it brought together all different kinds of people at a time when people weren't talking. all the different churches, all the different political parties. That's what we stand for. You can be a member of any political party and a member of the Armenian Assembly. Understand we have no political agenda in Armenia. We work with the government to build US-Armenia relations. It's something that's at the bedrock of what we do, of non-interference. But we talk to our government, which is the US government. I'm very optimistic about the future of Armenia, the next generation. I think they understand the Armenian Assembly. We've had over 1,000 interns come through our programs, and we have an Armenian internship here in Armenia where they work at the different ministries, the foreign ministry, the defense ministry. So those are the kind of programs we're active in. We have a next generation fund where we're raising huge amounts of money to train and educate the next generation and get them more deeply involved in Armenian life.
Yeah, on Armenia-United States relations, we have in Armenia, with journalists, commentators, political scientists, we have an impression that this American administration, President Trump, has lost interest in Armenia, in South Caucasus. Do you believe that's true?
No, I think unfortunately the president right now has his hands full because we're in an impeachment hearing today, actually. So I don't think it's a matter of, the State Department takes care of Armenia and they do a good job. I said in my last interview in October with RFERL, I said, we have top of class US ambassadors who come to Armenia. So you have the best of the best that come from the United States to represent the United States in Armenia. So I don't think they've lost interest. I think there are times that Armenia has to stand up and do what's in its best interest. And if sending troops, peacekeepers to Syria is in their best interest, then we as Americans will say that's in their best interest. They send peacekeepers to Kosovo, they send them to Afghanistan. There's a community in Syria and they have to protect that community. So maybe that's not something the US is, we know that they have concern about, but they should have some concern, but we're there for the right reasons. Armenians are there for the right reasons, and we as Americans will back them up on that.
Yeah. The issue of Armenian genocide, which is one of the priorities for the Armenian Assembly of America.
Absolutely.
Several weeks ago, the House of Representatives adopted the resolution. And what next and when?
Sure. So I'm very proud to say that the Armenian Assembly, together with all its coalition partners, all the organizations, everyone worked in conjunction, and as a result, the resolution did pass the House. A lot of credit goes to Anna Eshu, Jackie Spear, all the Armenian caucus did a wonderful job. Frank Pallone, obviously, and Adam Schiff, and others, and the Republican members as well. So we always said, and again in October when I was interviewed, I said, if it goes to the floor, it will pass. And it passed by a huge margin, 405 out of 435 votes. So we knew that if it gets to the floor, that if congressmen and women vote their conscience, it would pass. Now it's in front of the Senate. We have two amazing senators, Senator Cruz and Senator Menendez. Yeah. Senator Menendez has said, I will bring it up every week. Yeah. And what is he going to do? Tomorrow he will bring it up again. So
and what kind of expectations?
So it's very interesting. President Erdogan comes to Washington and said, this is meaningless. What does he do? He spends his entire press conference talking about the Armenian Genocide resolution. After the press conference, he meets with 4 senators to block the resolution in the Senate. He met with Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham immediately blocked the resolution and said, I won't do it again. Then David Perdue from Georgia blocked the resolution, said, I won't do it again. Then Kevin Kramer from North Dakota said, I'm blocking it even though I believe the genocide should be recognized. And his own paper yesterday, the Bismarck Tribune, called him out on it. So my guess is very soon the White House will get the message and stop opposing the resolution, because all they're doing is prolonging. Once it gets to the floor of the Senate, like the House, it will pass. Yeah.
Imagine that one day the US government recognizes Armenian genocide, so what?
So people ask,
a lot of countries, like states like Germany, France, several dozen already recognize the Armenian genocide.
Tatul, this question gets asked of me all the time. The Armenian genocide is the exact reason why we have a sovereign state. Basically, every Armenian throughout the world, and I spoke with the foreign minister about this yesterday, every Armenian throughout the world feels the genocide. So when Turks roll into Syria and Armenians get killed, an Armenian Catholic priest got killed, everybody harkens back to the day their grandparents were on those roads marching out of their historic lands, out of historic Armenia. Again, what you're seeing is the threat of Armenia. So our security as Armenians around the world is heightened. So when we pass the Armenian Genocide resolution, whether it's in Germany, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Russia, every Armenian feels it's about their security and sovereignty. We will fight back. Armenians will not allow others to die in vain. If I had a choice today to stop what Turkey did, because what they did is they rolled into Syria, they released all the ISIS prisoners from jail. Again, they were on a killing rampage, these terrorists. So we as the United States and our government has to own up to the fact that by their actions, others have died in vain. Now the Congress is saying enough is enough. We will not stand for this. So really the genocide resolution, A, reminds the world what happened to the Armenians, and B, says these atrocities will not be tolerated in the future.
Mr. Barsamian, on one hand, the Armenian Assembly is fighting for the Armenia's genocide recognition. On the other hand, since 1990s, is trying to, to support Armenian-Turkish diplomatic relations process. I would like to remind you, in 1990s, the Assembly initiated Hovnanian Alatom plan, and then in 2000s, supported TARC, Turkish-Armenian Reconciliation Commission, which was widely criticized in Armenia and in Diaspora, and also your organization in a way supported 2008 Armenia-Turkish football diplomacy. Sure. Don't you think that those two issues, the recognition and the normalization relations between Armenia and Turkey in some way are contradicting, or no?
Good question. Tatul, it comes down to this. If you have a government in Turkey that is sensitive to its neighbors, right? Turkey had a good neighbor policy where they said we want good relations with its neighbors. The Armenian Assembly is going to work to build relations at times when there's an opportunity to build those relations. But that means that genocide recognition is a part of that good neighbor policy. We've always said that the genocide recognition is forefront because it has to do with the security of Armenia. Now, these efforts, I have to tell you, when the resolution passed the House, you know how many calls I got from Turkish Americans congratulating us? Turkish society would love to have this issue behind them. We as Armenian Americans know that this will happen, but it's the government of Turkey that is the stumbling block. So when there are opportunities to dialogue with good Turkish citizens who have well-meaning intent to recognize the genocide, we'll take them up on that. Now, as a result of the ICTJ study that came out of TARC, they recognized that it was a genocide.
Right.
Hrant Dink, I had seen that October, said, but for the ICTJ report, I could not talk about the genocide in Turkey. Now, the genocide is widely discussed in Turkey. So there are going to be times where you do take bold moves to have the dialogue, but you don't negotiate away the genocide for other things. You use it as the lead to say, if we deal with the truth of what happened, then we can have open dialogue about the future of Turkish-Armenian relations. So I feel that sometimes we take risks, and sometimes we're going to be criticized, and I do get criticized as I'm an advocate. Basically, it's what I do. I advocate for U.S.-Armenia relations. Some people don't like what I do. Certainly some Turkish leaders don't like the way I advocate for Armenia. That's the cross I have to bear. But at the end of the day, I think we're doing the right thing, and I'll stand by what we do, because what we're doing is we're advocating for security and the sovereignty of Armenia in its place, and no one can challenge us if we're proven right, because all of Congress, all 405 members said, you're right in what you're doing.
Well, you are involved in several Armenian or pan-Armenian activities like Marriott Armenia Hotel, like the Armenian Assembly as co-chair, and Armenian Tree Project. Please tell some in short about Armenian Tree Project, how it started, where we are now.
Well, all the credit goes to Carolyn Mugar and John O'Connor, her husband. I mean, they started the Armenian Tree Project at the time
30 years ago.
25 years
25 years ago.
At the time of we just celebrated our 25th anniversary. At the time of the earthquake, when people were cutting down trees, Carolyn Mugar takes on the hard projects. So she said we have to replant the trees of Armenia and build the environment around clean air, trees, and water. So the good news is this government is very receptive to that. Nikol Pashinyan came to a conference that was just held in October with AUA and the Armenian Tree Project, and said we will double the forest by 2050. So we just planted last week our 6th million tree. 6 million trees in Armenia. 25 years, 6 million trees. The government has a very aggressive plan to plant more trees. We will partner with the government. We're working with the environmental ministry, and we're working with all the ministries. But basically, that's the kind of work that we like to see in Armenia. We're on the ground. For many years, the Armenian Tree Project just did its work. It was not publicly recognized. After 6 million trees, I think Carolyn Mugar and the Tree Project deserves recognition. So it's a good sign. And they've just named a hillside or a ridge in Margohovit after the Mugar family, and it's called the Mugar Protected Lands. So that forest will never be touched, right across from the Hrant forest.
Yeah. And last question, Mike.
Sure.
The Assembly has an internship program.
Yes.
You mentioned, and can you elaborate more? It's like Diaspora Ministries Aritun, something like that.
Sure. So since early days, we've placed people in Congress, and some of our interns are remarkable people. Judge Willa Hogan from Massachusetts is the highest ranking judge in the United States. She's an appellate court judge. Mark Hoplamazian, who is the president of Hyatt Corporation, was an Armenian Assembly intern. Every once in a while when I travel, someone will say, I was an Armenian Assembly intern. So our job is to get the best and the brightest young people from all walks of life, from all experiences, and get them excited about serving public service. And that's really what we all try to do, is we try to excite people about serving the public. The Armenian Assembly is only one of many internships out there, and there are other groups that do wonderful work in internships, but we work with them. Remember, the Armenian Assembly is a collaborative organization. We work with other organizations, we work with the ministries, we worked very hard on the Smithsonian project. So our interns a couple of years ago, when Armenia was featured at the Smithsonian Institute, our organization was at the forefront of making sure that Armenia was very well represented. So all that work is paying off. We'll continue to do our work and continue to working with Armenia and its people and its government.
Anthony Barsamian, thank you for this interview. Thank you for coming, CivilNet.
Thank you, Tatul.
And thank you for watching CivilNet.